Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Glenn H.
What's up, Mikey?
Hey, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Just a little behind the counter. We come into the studio early on Saturday mornings, usually.
Super early.
6 a.m. we start, and we do 4 or 5 at a time.
Right.
Right.
Why? Because we're overachievers.
Well, no, because of our schedules. And then we take a couple weeks off, and then we jump in again. But I'm all fired up this morning, man. We had some really tuned up episodes earlier and get the juices going, and really looking forward to our session.
Yeah, you about ready to be tuned up again?
Oh, I'm ready to be tuned up. We got
All
some
right.
good stuff going on.
Yeah, so normally we do some housekeeping, but...
Plus some coffee.
Yeah, well, I got the extra tall latte. It's so funny. Glenn reads my label on my coffee, and he's like, seriously, is there any coffee in there? But yeah, there
14
is...
sugars, 5 pumps of this, 17 pumps of that.
And an extra espresso.
Yeah, but at least there's no ice cubes in there.
That's right. So anyway, I want to jump in today, so we'll do housekeeping. So just a quick note, go to the website, all kinds of good stuff up there.
Oh, man, the website. I can't believe your writings.
Oh,
So flush out.
Yeah.
Be honest, right? We're fully transparent.
Right.
Your writings, also known as blogs, I mean, just absolutely amazing. How much of those are written by GPT?
Our next guest is just an automation brought to us by GPT.
That's awesome.
Yes. Sonia doesn't really exist.
But
She's
that
been
website,
created.
man, that website
right?
is amazing.
So let me jump
that.
right in, man. So we got a great guest this morning.
Love it.
Yeah, we're super excited to have with us Sonia. And Sonia's she's going to tell you a little bit about what she does on her day job, but we're just super excited to have her because, and I got to tell you, we're only audio, so we're not video, but when she arrived at the coffee shop virtually, her background has this like really eye-catching art, and it jumped right out. I'm like, hey, move! I mean, yeah, you're right in the picture. You're right in the way of this beautiful art behind you. And she said, well, that's my art. So you're an artist as well, Sonia.
I am, and that's me in there.
Oh, I love it.
That's awesome.
I love it. So anyway, welcome, Sonia. We're so super excited to have you. I think we connected via one of either our email, which, by the way, people, please sign up for the emails, or through social media. Probably Glenn. Glenn's all over. Glenn does our social media, and he does such a great job. And so I don't recall exactly how we connected. Do you recall?
I do not,
No,
and I
don't
do
recall
such a lackluster, mediocre job on social media. Not like some people do. Some people are like geniuses.
Yeah. So, yeah, super excited to have you. So tell us, give a little intro to yourself, because I couldn't do it justice, but I know that at the end of the day, I feel that we're going to be talking about connection here. And I am such a believer. Here's the thing, and my ADD is really kicking, or the caffeine is kicking in. But here's the thing. I never was a fan of connection. I didn't want to connect with anything except my bottle. That's where it ended up.
Yeah.
Now, not in the early days. In the early days, the bottle helped me connect with people, right? But then I abandoned the people. When I went from recreational to requirement, I abandoned the people, and I wanted no connection at all, because to connect would be to expose my deficiencies, my disease, and the darkness that I lived in. So, right? Connection. Right. Now I crave it. It is my lifeline. And so super excited to have you. Talk to me a little bit about connection.
Connection. Yeah, I always think about the reasons I drank. And I think one of them was I didn't want to lean on people, right? With any problem I had. And it wasn't until the last year, when even I had been sober for 5 years, but I was in a position where I needed help to get through a divorce. And I started leaning on people in a way I never had. I was telling everybody, have you been through this? And I talked to remember the pickle guy at the farmer's market. I was
The pickle guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, who gets advice from the pickle guy?
You would be surprised what sage advice comes from the pickle guy. I told this guy came to like take down a hornet's nest on my shed. I was like, husband left out of no, I was blindsided, you know? So I will talk about, it was really interesting to learn about myself, that I always thought that I was someone that wasn't like that. And I needed that connection. I leaned on people really hard.
Right. You know, it's so funny because I never asked for help. That's not the way I was raised.
Never.
I was raised, you want it, you do it. You know, came from a single mom early in life, right? She was a single mom, ultimately got remarried, and that was great. But we learned you do for yourself. You do for yourself. And what a transformation when you begin to understand that, first of all, Sonia, if you called me after this podcast and said, hey, I need help with something, I'd be honored and eager to help you. You know, people want to help, and we need to want help.
I could not believe that as true as it was. It was like I have two sister-in-laws, both divorced from my brother, and
wait, both of them married your brother?
Yeah,
okay,
divorced, and they're amazing. My brother is an alcoholic, and so they both kind of understood what was going on. But sure. I didn't realize that I had been there for them in however many years, right? And I was so reluctant to lean on them, but I had no choice. I was in such bad shape that I could not help it. Like, I went back home to Toronto where they were for weeks just to be around them. And someone said to me, like, do you know probably how happy they are to be able to give that back to you? Like, to be there for you? They must be like, because I was always going with like no problems, right? Like, good career, good marriage. And so, yeah, I think I realized that too, that people want to do it. It's not like you're taking something from them. You're letting them give something to you.
Right. No, that's absolutely positively correct. It's people want to be asked. Sometimes you just need to. And I love, by the way, now I got the song Lean on Me, you know, in my head. So.
Yeah, but especially, I mean, I like a lot of people my whole life, you know, I was taught, hey, do it yourself, figure it out yourself, especially in business, right? And I think that was one of my problems is I thought asking for help was a weakness. And then a point in time when I had no other option because all my crap came to an end, I asked for help, and boy, was help there.
Yeah.
And one of the things about AA is the 12th step. I mean, there are so many people that did stuff for me, stuff that I would never be able to repay. And I asked for some of that help, and some of it just came because I was in the right place. I was in the rooms, and I was part of AA and part of a program that was just so loving and forgiving and helpful and serving. And I've even said, you know, that serving is a superpower.
Right.
I mean, serving today, it's funny. I'm you know, kind of busy, but when somebody when somebody asks me to do something, I'll tell you, I say yes, and when I say yes, I'm like, how am I ever going to be able to fit that in? It always works out.
Right. I chuckled. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but kind of busy. Did you really say kind of busy? I mean, I googled, you know, super busy, and there was your face. So. So tell us a little bit about what brought you to this place. So you'd gone through some relationship things, and so what kind of, how long you been sober, if I could ask?
So I've been sober now almost 6 years.
Wow,
and so I was super busy, right? Like, I had a business that I started, and it was going well. It was exploding, and the better it did, the more I drank, and the more my mental health was just spiraling. It was like it took every insecurity and fear I had and just like magnified it, right? Like fear about like losing, like, you know, what if this all goes away and I end up like broke? And what if this, you know, what if something happens and like all these people are dependent on me? And so when I got the offer to sell the business, it was literally like a beam of light, like shone down. And I was like, oh my God. And I knew that if I didn't stop drinking, that I was about to have a lot more free time than I had ever had in 40 years.
And that doesn't work out well. Just ask me.
does not work out if you are drinking like, with all your free time.
Sure.
And so all of a sudden my free time was about to go from like this 3-hour window at night to like this sort of like ambiguous, like what time would I start drinking? I'm gonna start drinking at like noon. So I knew that I was gonna have some trouble. And so I just quit. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but I mean, I was drinking hard, and I just realized that this was just not going to be compatible with, life. And so, I quit without really a specific pathway. And so my pathway was just sort of like, do all the things I had wanted to do in 40 years, right? Like I wanted to go to school for photography. I wanted to learn coding. I wanted to bake. I wanted to learn how to make jewelry. And so I did all the things. And then I feel like something just started to open up in me where, the same thing. I wanted to be of service. And so I started getting involved with nonprofits, and I started teaching entrepreneurship to the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. And I was finally talking about my addiction there. Like it took me going to prison to talk about actually being an addict.
Right, not as an inmate, as a guest.
As a guest, yeah. And then, just different things. I was volunteering, with victims of sex trafficking, helping them with their resumes. So my thing was always like, how do we help people get jobs, right? I think that the only thing that really saved me from ending up, honestly, like exactly where they were was one, it was like one bad night, right? And I could have been exactly where they were in prison.
Oh, that weighs so heavy. I mean, I should have.
Why aren't you? Right.
Yes,
and it's like,
right.
I was facilitating a meeting for EverBlume the other day. And I said, I think we were talking about rock bottom. And I said, I think like rock bottom is, if you don't actually hit a bottom, is realizing that you are so lucky that none of these things have happened yet. Right. And I think that should be enough. Right. Like I'm not in jail. Like, hallelujah, and I think we should be so grateful.
All right, take me to that moment that you said, I quit. Take me there. Where were you emotionally, physically? What was your tonality of surrender?
I knew for a long time that I had a problem, but I was so high functioning. I was like the definition of a high functioning alcoholic. I like started, built, scaled, and sold a business. And that made it easy for me to pretend there wasn't a problem. But I knew because I was sick all the time, like physically, it was like a chronic illness. I'm not somebody, I love people who are like, oh, I don't get hangovers. It's like my whole life was like a hangover and then drink to get rid of the hangover.
Right.
And then another hangover. And so I think I knew that it was going to happen. And so I was just I feel like maybe I was waiting for something like, oh, maybe like something will happen. I'll fall down the stairs or I'll, something, or, I'll do something that'll make me realize how serious it is. But honestly, in the end, I was just at brunch with a friend of mine on a Sunday, and I had like the most vicious hangover. I was like sweating. I was seeing black spots, which wasn't new. It wasn't totally new. Like my hearing was going in and out. I was fully didn't know what happened Saturday night, which was not new either. I had been blacking out for years and years at that point. And so I remember the waiter came over and was like, oh, would you like a mimosa? And I was like, no, I would not.
Wow.
And I think it's like the first time I ever turned a drink down. I always say like I'm like a gold star, like alcoholic. Like I never turned down a drink, and I never had only one drink ever, never.
Right.
And so I remember like walking back home after saying no to that mimosa, and my friend was pregnant, so she wasn't going to be drinking anyways. So I was like, I just can't do it anymore. I was so sick that day, and I was like, I played the tape forward, and I said, okay, so
right, there you go.
Now, so we're going to have to drink tonight, right, to get rid of this hangover. And then tomorrow, we're still going to have this hangover because it's so bad, plus the next hangover. And I have to be at work at 8 a.m. And I just I surrendered. I just said, I can't. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to drink tonight. And look, I'd said that, for a decade, every night, every like afternoon for a decade was like, I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm not going to drink tonight.
Right.
But for some reason, it was just the right time, I guess, that it just all kind of like fit, where I was getting sicker and sicker. I didn't like who I was becoming. I think there's a certain point where like, when you're hitting 40, that it's like, it's not cute anymore. And
yeah, my wife would suggest
rough.
that nothing I did was cute in my addiction. Right. Wow. So
lucky you got to keep your spouse though. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, lucky for her. So now your life is wrapped around driving connection for others. Tell me a little bit about how you help people connect.
Yeah. So I went through this divorce and I realized I hadn't set up a proper sober community for myself. And so I had tons of support, like my sister-in-laws, and I had, I live in like a tiny hamlet, and I have like neighbors, and I had a friend going through a divorce, but I didn't have anyone who understood this as part of my sober journey, that like, it was not a given that I wasn't going to drink during this divorce process. Not to me. I think to everyone else it was. And so I thought about it. I thought like, I looked for what I thought I needed, which was I need a small group of people. I need people that are going through not something necessarily, not a divorce, but some sort of life transition, right? Like they're trying to rebuild their life in the same way I am and trying to stay sober. And so I looked for it, and I went to like every meeting you can imagine. I went to like Satanists, not AA, but like, sober Satanist meetings. I went to like different types of like women's sober meetings, all sorts of different non-12 step community meetings. I had tried AA in the past, but it was like I was like in rural Pennsylvania. I'm like, let me look online, and I couldn't find it. And so I thought like if this is really a void, then I'm happy to fill it. And so I became a recovery coach, and then I started interviewing like dozens and dozens of people, like dozens of sober people, and said like, what is it you love about whatever program you're in? What is missing? And people who weren't in any sort of meeting. And so it seemed like that was sort of a recurring theme was, well, I go, and then it's like, I have nothing to talk about, or I have nothing in common, or I don't feel comfortable like making a speech or like a monologue. And so I thought, what I needed feedback, right? I needed advice. I needed someone to say like, you're going to be okay. This sucks right now. And next month, you're going to feel better. And the month after that, you're going to feel better. And I tried this and it made me feel better. And so I just started to kind of like map out the idea of EverBlume, which ended up being, it's basically small group meetings where people are matched on what they're struggling with. So not demographically matched.
Right.
So it's more like, I thought first about what are the things I struggled with. And it's like, I struggled with self-confidence, self-esteem, imposter syndrome. So that could be a group. And then right now I'm struggling with a life transition. That could be a group. And I feel like also this is one thing I noticed and got a lot of feedback on was a lot of people are in the first 90 days that are like coming to meetings. Like they come when they're trying to get sober.
The explorers.
And that's sort of
explorers, right?
Yeah, that's a unique thing. Yeah, let's have a different group for people that are in their first 90 days that need to talk about different things than someone who, for example, in like the first, after 5 years. So for me, like they have an acute, like urgent need, right? And I don't want to interrupt somebody who's on their 7th day with like, oh, my husband left, right? I mean, my husband's still going to be gone in 6 months. They might not be sober in 6 months. And I feel like I always want to prioritize them. So that was a really important group for me to start. And we have multiple of those people that are in the first 90 days of sobriety. So yeah, the meetings are amazing. I sort of try to step back as much as I can. I'll like introduce a few different topics, and if they want to talk about them, they can. And they talk to each other. I encourage like the crosstalk, right? Like tell each other what you think. If one of you is struggling, like it actually came out the other day in a meeting that 2 of the people in my group wanted to have a drink this weekend and like wanted to mindfully have a couple of drinks. And one, that's not compatible with AA. I'm totally abstinent. So that's a tough one for me to navigate. But there were people there that could help them navigate that. Right.
Right.
And I feel like that's something like there's that whole sober, curious, whole gray area drinking that a lot of us that are fully abstinent don't really understand, right? And it's great to bring people together that are exploring that too.
Right.
So, Sonia, are all your groups focused on some level of recovery or related issues, or do you have issues outside of that?
No. So when I started mapping it out, like the center was sober, right? I wrote the word sober in a circle,
right.
And then I just like put spokes coming out of it and thought, okay, you're sober and you're dealing with this. You're sober and you're dealing with parenting. You're sober and, for example, this is a really big one. You're a healthcare provider. There's so many healthcare providers that don't feel comfortable in large meetings, and they feel comfortable with each other though, right? And so, and I was a healthcare provider, and so I thought that's one of the reasons I was scared to get help. And so that's a good one. But yeah, sobriety is at the center of everything in EverBlume.
Now, do healthcare providers not feel comfortable in big meetings because they might be recognized, or okay?
Yeah,
I'm watching Sonia nod her head. And,
right.
And the listeners can't see that, but
right,
she's nodding her head,
yes.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing too is when I went to rehab, they had an old unit just for first responders, healthcare workers. I mean, yeah, it's a real deal.
It is the real deal. Yeah, you're right. It's because they're afraid of being recognized. I remember my ex-husband saying to me when I was like, I think I want to go to an AA meeting. He's like, what if somebody sees you? Like, what if one of your patients sees you? And I mean, valid point, but theoretically it shouldn't matter, right? Theoretically it's anonymous, but I understand that fear. And so, yeah, it exists. And so I think that, healthcare providers have a really high rate of addiction too, just the nature of the job.
Yeah. So I had a guy that reached out to me on Twitter a couple of years ago and he felt comfortable speaking with me because I was anonymous, and he was a well-known guy in the Philadelphia area. Surprisingly enough, he is right where I grew up, and I'm in Chicago. But he shared his story, and he says, "Oh, I'm never going to go to AA," and he goes, because he's a relatively well-known guy, and he's like, "Man, I go to those meetings. What happens if people recognize me and they realize I have a problem?" And I said to him, "I'm like, I understand." I said, but you realize they're there for the same reason.
Right.
And it like dropped a wall of like fear. And he goes, never thought of it that way. And he just celebrated 2 years of sobriety.
Wow.
Oh.
So I get it.
Sonia, we're getting to the top of the half hour, but there's a couple things I'd like to. You talk in our correspondence back and forth about building a recovery toolkit. Two things I want to accomplish before our time ends. Number two, because I don't go in order because I'm an alcoholic. Number two is we want to let people know how they can get, find out more about EverBlume. But number one, you talked about a toolkit. Tell me about your current toolkit. Connection, obviously, is number one. EverBlume. What are some of the other tools? I know Play It Forward I picked up in your... What are some of the things you do on a daily basis, weekly, monthly basis to stay sober?
I mean, my toolkit was, based on what I was going through my life. So I was like journaling, meditating, I was eating properly, exercising. And so those things I noticed, like I really take the HALT really seriously.
Sure,
the hungry, angry, lonely, tired is huge for me. So to keep all those things, together every day is really important. And I noticed that when I went through this divorce, all of it went out the window.
Right.
All of it.
Sure.
I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I stopped exercising. And so that's when the idea of, okay, what am I going to be able to continue doing? And I went to meetings every morning at 8 a.m.
Right.
And that, the connection now is the main part of my toolkit. And slowly those habits came back, right?
Right, sure.
Now I'm doing all those things and I have a normal schedule, but playing it forward, never question the decision is huge for me, because when that one person that you essentially in your mind got sober for, I'm putting it in quotes, got sober for myself,
right.
But when that person leaves because they don't like the sober person,
you're left with you and your sobriety.
Yeah, me and my sobriety. Great.
Right.
And so that's,
right.
I had to not question the decision. And so, that's my toolkit, and it grows every day and changes. But those are my favorite ones.
Excellent.
Awesome.
How do people find out about EverBlume?
You can go to joineverblume.com and you can come to a free meeting just to try it out. So no risk, no commitment, just try it out. See if you like the format. It's not for everyone. It's a 10 to 12 people at most, and everyone's kind of talking and sharing. And, even if you don't want to share, we really want you to, help out the other members in the group that are struggling. And so, joineverblume.com, sign up for a free meeting, or you can sign up for a membership. And then we're pretty much EverBlume or Join EverBlume on every social media platform.
Okay, Join EverBlume.
Awesome.
Okay, we'll put those links in the resource room. Sonia, thanks for connecting with us today.
Absolutely. Great
to
have
you.
you.
A lot of energy. Love your toolkit, and love what you're doing. And come back and see us again.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@sober.coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.